Hello fellow campers and canoe trippers. I'm going to do something a little different. Last time I emptied out my food pack to show you what was in it. I just sort of dumped everything willy-nilly on the ground. Well, what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to weigh everything. And this is partly for my benefit, okay, so I can see just how much gear that I've got along. I'm going to use this fishing scale, and it's semi-accurate. I hung a 5-pound bag of potatoes on here, and it actually read 5 pounds, so it should be all right. For some of the lighter stuff, I'm going to use this portion control. Very accurate, measures in ounces scale. Alrighty? So, first off, when I was on the trip, I consolidated some things into the bag. I put the tent in along with the food bag in order to make the gear bag a little bit lighter. But normally I carry this shelter in it, and this shelter is lighter than my baker shelter. It only weighs about 3 pounds, and the baker shelter is about 5. So there's my MSR Mountain Safety Research tarp that I used on the last trip. Okay, I'll pull a couple straps here. I put my tent in, and this is the Atco. That's my tent that I take along on all my canoe trips now. It's a one-man, made in Sweden, really high class, and it's really light, and it only weighs about 3 pounds too. Okay? So altogether I got about 6 pounds of shelter. Alright? And here's the bag. This was originally made to hold a pack basket. So it has a lot of extra straps on it. But I took out the pack basket because that was just some weight, and I didn't want to carry any more weight than I had to. So I went to putting everything into plastic bags. I have 2 liners, and that's actually mostly to keep the food smell away from the bears. Everything else is packed in plastic bags, so I'm not too worried about the rain getting on it. The old fry pan, and I bet there's no weight on that, and that doesn't even show. And that comes in at about 13 ounces. And that's a little heavier than some of the really lightweight ones. I have 2 of these heavy-duty mylar and plastic ground cloths, and one usually goes inside the tarp, and one is used over by the tent. And they came in at where's the reading? They came in at about 28 ounces. But I figure they're really important because they keep the water off of everything. Fly swatter, I'm not even going to bother weighing that, but that really comes in handy too. Now, the bear rope, that's for hanging the food bag up into the tree, keep the bears away from the food. And I don't think it's going to show up on this scale. No, way too light. But over here on my ounce scale, it comes in at about 18 ounces. And that's super important. I would not go without that. Okay. The big item, the cook kit. That's probably about the heaviest thing in here that's not food related. And I'll break it down. But before I do, let's take a look at the weight on it. That comes in at about 3 pounds. That's not too bad. A little less than I thought it would be. And I do have, you know, the coffee cup and the rice pot that you saw in another video. You gotta have the pancake flipper. Gotta have the windshield. And then there's a slug of utensils. Knife, fork, spoon, and that lighter that I showed you. And they all come in at about 10 ounces. So I got about 10 ounces. The heaviest thing is the fishing pliers that I was using as a pot lifter. Because for the first time ever, I forgot my pot lifter. Okay? And the other heavy item is the crook kit, the square one. And it comes in at about 23 ounces. But it also included on the inside my little stove and one fuel cart. I'm not going to break down this anymore, but that's how much the stove and the main cook kit pot. And then there's this guy. A couple other things, but the spoon and the lid for that, but they're not going to add that much weight. This is my big, another spoon, stuff falling all over the place. This big pot has always gone along since day one, and it only weighs about 10 ounces, and that's something that people say I could leave behind, but there's just too many things that I find it useful for. Taking bucket baths is one of the major ones, and hauling water is the other one. It's just too handy. And I have a pie tin. I use that mostly for putting things on that I want to keep clean, and that has no weight. We won't be bothered with that. Okay, now we'll keep going. My kneeling pad, which I burned a hole in when I left the candle lantern on top of it. That's something I consider to have no weight, but it's great for kneeling on, and it's only about 2.5 ounces. Alrighty. My plastic water buckets. These guys are great. I could probably just take one of them, because I only use this big one, which is 6 liter. This didn't get used much, and that was enough water for me all day in camp. But weighed together, they come out to be, I guess they come out to be about 5 ounces. A big heavy book that I was reading, The History of Doubt. I'll throw that in just for humor, just to see how much reading material I had along. About 26 ounces. But that kept me busy at night. My leftover brandy, I don't even bother with that because it was just a little bottle of brandy, and I don't know how much weight was in that. Yeah, extra cord that I use just in case I have to hold the shelter up, and that was a waste because I never used that. So that's about 3 ounces. Alright, an empty box that I had crackers in, that was filled with crackers. That's about 4.5 ounces. This is my apron from Classic Camp Stoves, and I've had this for years, and it's really getting messy. But when I eat, I sit in one of those camp chairs on the ground, and I wear this to keep the food off my clothes. All right. And now we're getting into some real odds and ends here. I had 2 fuel cartridges in this bag. I brought one full one back. A fuel cartridge full is about 15 ounces. Okay, now that one came back full. All right, now we're getting into things like the garbage. And what I'm going to, oh no, this is my, not garbage. This is the carbide lamp that I took along for a demo, and you'll probably see this in an upcoming movie. But I wanted to take one of my carbide lamps along to try out, to show people how they burn and what they're like. And I didn't need that, and it came into about 8 ounces. So that was 8 ounces of unnecessary stuff. Somehow it looks like my uneaten cookies and crackers. I took along packages of Fig Newtons and Oreos, and I didn't eat them all for whatever reason. So I brought back about 13 ounces of uneaten cookies. So I did that. Let's see. This is a stove. This was a spare stove. This is the one that I rigged up. It's a Whisper Light stove, and I fixed it up so I could burn gas cartridges on it. Now I have another stove that's made in Japan, or made in China. It's the same idea, but it's a lot flimsier than this. But I wanted something with a big base on it, and something that would cook bannocks and pancakes without getting that hot spot. So I made this up. And I probably only used it for maybe 4 or 5 times. And it was about 10 ounces. Okay. And let's see what else we got in here. That's a bottle that goes into the tent with me. This is food that I brought back. Okay, and it's in a big plastic bag, and it looks like it's some food that's still good. It might be garbage. That's the problem. We'll look at that later. That might be the garbage bag. We'll find out in a minute. Somehow, my LL Bean boots went in there, because I didn't want to be carrying those on the back of the pack where they were bouncing around, so I stuck them in there. And bean boots are, while they're not heavy, they still have enough weight to them. And I'll just weigh one. And how much does it say? A pound. So maybe there's a couple pounds of LL Bean boots that came back with the food. Okay, more gas cartridges. I've got one, 2. Okay, this one's still full at 8 ounces, and I use this for my gas lamp. And a holster to carry my gun. I never use that at 11 ounces. I just kept the gun close by. Okay, here's another empty gas cartridge. So far I've used 3 gas cartridges. The other gas cartridge for the lamp. I didn't use the lamp very much, so that comes in at another 8 ounces as unused fuel. And we'll keep going. Oh yeah, here's something big. My chair can never go without the chair. The chair goes inside the tent at night, so I can sit and read, especially in the fall when it gets dark at 8:30 and you can't be sitting outside all night because it gets chilly. So take that, and that weighs about 23 ounces. So that's a good deal for just 23 ounces of gear. Let's see. This is an empty plastic bag that my dinners were put in. I'm going to set that aside because we may be weighing out the garbage in there. These 2 Tupperware containers, they hold the gloves and the cups that I use in one of my photo projects, and they come in at about 11 ounces. But that's just a fun project and not really necessary. Leftover paper towels, you won't bother weighing those. Gloves, mostly used when I pull up the bear bag, get it up in the tree, and I don't want the line cutting into my hand. Also good for fooling around by the fireplace. They got a little bit of use at about 5 ounces. Not a lot of use, a little bit. My water filter. This is a real high quality water pump style water filter. I'm sure you've all seen these. That's the Pure Hiker. I hardly use that at all. All the water I was around was so good looking that I didn't feel I needed to really pump water, and there were no little creatures in the water this year. That Diphinia, the little water fleas that live along the shoreline, didn't see those this year. And that's about 13 ounces. I never used that, but I did have one of those UV lights that I swirled around inside my drinking water, and that took care of that. Okay. This looks like garbage, so I think what I'm going to do is consolidate all the garbage into one bag and then weigh it. But as you can see, there's a lot of empty plastic bags and that sort of thing. I'll put it into there, and we'll add the other garbage that I find to it. And we're getting down toward the bottom. Okay, there's only one more big major bag here, and this is garbage. This is all the plastic bags, and empty containers and that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's garbage. In there, and that's about it. And I have done things like put plastic bags between the two bags, between the two liners. And now, how much does the bag weigh? I've had people tell me that the bag weighs more than an ultralight camper would carry in his total amount of gear. But let's see how much my bag weighs. The bag weighs 7 pounds. So there's 7 pounds of the loose pack to carry the food in. All right. Okay, now let's take a look at the mystery bag. These are all the meals that I brought back that I didn't use. Okay. That's Bisquick. There's some cheese. There's a freeze-dried meal. There's some containers of oil. You could almost call those garbage. A little bit of Tang that was kind of left over. Half a package of eggs, but that's really garbage. Oh, my fire starter. I never go without a tube of this fire starter. And it came back at about 3 ounces. And it started out at a little more than that. So I used about half of what was in there. Okay? Let's see what else we got. Oh, tea, real high quality tea. That was my backup breakfast, oatmeal. I'm going to throw this on the ground. Oatmeal and brown sugar for a backup breakfast. Never used that. That was 7 ounces of unused stuff. Here is the stuff I use to make my breakfast with. Part of a package of tomato and an unopened package of bacon chips. And they came back at about 5 ounces. I'll throw some of that away. Brought back sugar. That tube is 5 ounces of brought back sugar. Oh, there's a candy bar. I got this candy bar at the Asian grocery store. It's all full of nuts and dark chocolate, and it's made in Malaysia. And I thought this would be a great snack. Never ate it. Oh, anyway, I brought back a Malaysian candy bar that I never ate at 4 ounces. Leftover jam. I'm kind of surprised I didn't use all that. So I brought back about 6 ounces of uneaten jam. Okay. Butter, I won't bother weighing that. These are the containers of dried fruit. That's garbage. So here's 2 uneaten containers, and they say these are 1 3/4 ounces each of uneaten dried fruit that I brought back. Alright. Let's see. Oh, a meal. This was one of the backup meals. This is freeze-dried beef with a Knorr rice side, and that comes back at about 7.5 ounces. So about 7.5 ounces for a homemade dried meal. Breakfast. This is the bag with the packages of instant coffee. And that's all I use these days is that instant coffee. And a bunch of tea bags. And I brought those back at, an amazing 8 ounces. There's a couple cocos in there, and the cocos are kind of heavy too. But I thought that was a lot for 8 ounces of coffee and stuff to bring back. Another butter. That's just about empty. And I used up an entire tube of sugar. So for a 2-week trip with coffee every morning with lots of sugar, I used a 1.5 tubes. Okay? And that's about it. There's nothing else in there worth really looking at. Okay, now what I want to do is weigh the garbage. This is all the garbage that got brought back. Now you're not allowed to burn anything in the boundary waters anymore. In fact, you're not allowed to burn your garbage any place in Minnesota anymore. Alright? So you got to bring it all back. And for me, it's mostly empty plastic bags and containers. And I brought back 1, 2, 3, a little over 3 pounds of garbage. And I don't think that's too bad. In fact, I think that's really pretty good. So I used 3.5 containers of stove fuel, and I brought back 1 big major meal, a freeze-dried meal, oatmeal that can be still used, and everything else is just odds and ends and food that I didn't eat, and a few things that were tossed into the bag to lighten up the main bag, like my boots and my mountain safety reserve tarp. So there it is. That's all the stuff I take along, all spread out for you to see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this video and I'm going to figure out from all the weights of everything just how much stuff I took that I didn't need, and see if I can reduce all this to the point where my next trip I have a much lighter bag. Alright? And before I left on the canoe trip, I weighed this whole thing, and this whole bag with all the stuff in it and all the food in it was heavy. It was about 65 pounds. I can't believe that, but that's about how much it weighed. Okay, well that's it. I hope when you go out on your trips you pack an awful lot lighter than this. Stay safe.